we had the okay. I had my radio show today. We did the Trust Radio Network, and then we did the IRS Radio Hour. Had David Hochberg on the show, and he was talking about forbearance and things like that. And so it's such an important, because it's part of the plan. It's not only this PPP program, but part of the plan is to keep things active and keep as much cash in your pocket right now as you can until some of this money gets paid out. Just a minute. Alexa, master on. Gonna need some light. It's getting dark out. So okay. There we go. We get some light. Good thing I have the Alexa. So, but we're going to talk a little bit again about the PPP program. I'm going to answer some questions. I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself. I had a lot of calls, probably in the last, since Friday at least, about the PPP program and trying to set up a time to talk to me. And I've been so swamped that I thought it would make more sense to have an opportunity to have multiple people come in and talk. I've been doing webinars or live streaming consultations for a long time, many years, more than 10 years I've been doing it. And although I haven't used the Zoom platform, I have used it before, but not for this type of meeting. So you're going to have to learn with me about how this all works. I like the Zoom platform, and that's why I'm going to use it instead of the last program. I was using these other programs or platforms. It was good for initial consultations. So because I've helped people from all around the country in their tax problems, and so I did these initial consultations over online. Again, been doing it for a long time. Now, again, I was talking about my radio show today. We talked to David Hochberg. David Hochberg is a mortgage guy. He is the mortgage guy, actually, for him, in my mind. And we were talking about forbearance agreements. Again, this is one of the plans. This is part of the planning process that I wanted to talk to everybody about. First, we're going to talk about the PPP and the loans. I'm trying to buy a little bit more time to get some more participants in, to give them a chance to get here. And then we're going to talk about the PPP, the CARES Act overall, other programs that are out there. So there's other programs for disaster relief. Many municipalities have programs, loans, grants, other things. The state of Illinois has some, and I'm sure other states also have these programs out there that will help you. And so what we're trying to do is bring it all together and trying to use as many of the programs as you can that you can qualify for. So again, the PPP, which is the Paycheck Protection Program, and the disaster SBA loans, 7A loans, and how to get those. Again, all these other municipalities that have this stuff, and then pushing your other creditors away so you can free up some cash because you're going to need some money until this money comes in. And so if you could put off your mortgage, we'll talk a little bit about putting off your mortgage, fighting with I wouldn't say fight, but it's going to be a fight, right? If I have creditors that I can't pay or vendors that I'm not going to be able to pay right away, they're going to start coming after me. And so how do I deal with that? So let me give you a little bit background about me. Okay, my name is Attorney Stephen Leahy. I'm here in Chicago. I've helped people with different aspects of debt. So early in my career, I did a lot of bankruptcy work. So I did a lot of Chapter 7 bankruptcies, helping individuals file for protection under the bankruptcy laws. As my practice grew, I started doing Chapter 13 bankruptcies. And so the Chapter 13 bankruptcies led me to help people who were behind in their mortgage. So I can give you a little bit of background about bankruptcy. Maybe we'll do that down in just a minute. So, but Chapter 13 is an avenue for people who are behind in their mortgage, and it's a way for them to save their home. So I started doing more Chapter 13s designed to help people save their homes. Well, in the 2006, 2007, I had never heard of a loan modification. I had been working with many mortgage companies in the Chapter 13 and in foreclosure. So I started doing foreclosure defense. And in 2008, when the meltdown happened, foreclosures went through the roof. I was already helping people with foreclosures. So I did a lot of foreclosure work. So I learned about mortgages, mortgage companies, how to deal with them, how to get a loan modification, how to get a loan repayment plan, and these other things that are out there to help people who are behind in their mortgages. And that also gives me the experience to deal with other creditors. So sometimes when people come to see me, bankruptcy is not the right avenue for them. They may have assets, they might have equity in their home or some other assets that they want to protect. And so bankruptcy is not the right answer for them. And so then what we do is we deal with their creditors directly, and we try to work out some sort of payment arrangements or a reduction of the balance, so to make it work for my clients. So that's that, and that might come in handy here in a situation like this, because so many people are going to be facing this, and so that's where I got the experience there. Again, helping with people with when the mortgage foreclosures happened, and I did a lot of mortgage foreclosures, did a lot of short sales, because one way to get out from under a mortgage foreclosure is to sell your property. Well, when the property values are falling, that's a very difficult time for you to try to sell your house, and so the only way you can sell it is through a short sale. And just so you know, a short sale is when the mortgage company agrees to take less than you owe them to release their lien, so you can sell the house and get out from under. But in the mortgage crisis, what happened was that many of my clients were small business people, and so I started helping people, many more small businesses. And I also learned that not only were they having mortgage issues, but they were also having problems with the tax, their IRS problems, because they were running businesses. Many of them had payroll issues because they didn't have the funds to pay the payroll taxes, or they fell behind in their own taxes. And that's what got me into helping people with taxes. So I started helping people with IRS problems and other tax problems, bank payroll. But primarily, we're helping people who own their own business. And so that's what brings me here to the PPP program, right? In that this is exactly the people that I'm helping in this kind of situation, because people are up in the air about what's going on in this program. It just passed on March 27th of 2020. So that's 2 weeks ago today. Today's Friday. So 2 weeks ago today, they passed this it's called the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act, or CARES Act for short. They love to use acronyms, and that's one of the acronyms that they use as the PPP, right? The PPP is a acronym for the Paycheck Protection Program. And the PPP is one of the first provisions of the CARES Act. And so one of the first things that the purpose of that act was to help small businesses survive. The government has told us all that we need to shut down and we can't conduct our business. And so if that happens and we don't have any income, and of course, if I'm not open, how am I going to get any income? Then how am I going to pay my bills? How everybody's going to go into foreclosure? Everybody's going to have to file bankruptcy, all this kind of stuff. And this is what we're trying to avoid. And that's the whole purpose of the PPP program. Now, I don't know if you've heard this. Initially, this program was funded with $349 billion. Again, $1 billion. This is, and these today, Friday, Congress is pushing to add another $250 billion to that amount. So, people are now afraid that they waited too long and they're not going to be able to get in and get a part of this money. It's all going to the preferential people. And so this $250 billion influx should alleviate some of that fear. So there's still time. There's still, we're not really pressed yet to come into the end of this. So if you're a small company, so let me just kind of review what the PPP is. Okay, so first, it's for companies that have between 1 and 500 employees. Okay, so 1 and 500. So I get a lot of people say, well, I'm a realtor, or I'm an insurance man, or I'm some, that I'm an independent contractor. I don't get, is this available for me? And the answer is yes, it is available for you. You can use this program to get some money up front so you can pay your bills. This is how we're going to calculate how much money you get in the loan. Now, the loan terms, there are loan terms because it is a loan. And the loan terms are 1%. Now, when do you get a 1% loan, right? For 2 years. And it's deferred payments for at least 6 months to a year. But in that 6 months, what the goal is that we substantiate what you use the money for. And if you use the money for the purposes set out in the act, which is using it to pay bills or payroll, I should say, payroll, utility, rent, or interest on a mortgage, these types of bills, then that loan will be forgiven. So the amount of the loan is determined by what your payroll was last year. Well, what if you're an independent contractor? You say, I really don't have a payroll. So what you do in a situation like that is you look back on your last year's income and you divide it by 12. So I have a realtor. He made about $80,000 last year. And so what we did was $80,000 divided by 12 and then multiply that by 2.5. I believe that number comes out to be something in the neighborhood of $16,666. Again, $16,666. And that's going to be the amount of his loan. And after he gets that loan, he can use it to pay himself. He can use it to pay his rent or the interest on his on his mortgage or his rent or some other utility bills. Another big one would be internet service, right? So that's one of the utilities that are covered. And utility, I read an article today that internet use has gone up by more than 50% since the stay-at-home order. Well, that makes sense, right? That everybody's doing their work from home, or even if they're not working from home, they're browsing the web and using the internet. So that's a big part of this. Now, when you're going to go forward, now a lot of these loans seem to be easy. It seems to be, hey, fill out this easy form on my bank, and we're going to send you the money. But what's going to happen is you're going to get lulled in this sense of security, like, oh, I already have my application in. I think a lot of them have not processed those loans, so they're going to come back and start asking you for information. So what we call in my line of work, we call that substantiation. So they're going to ask you for your 940 forms for last year. They're going to ask you, I'm using a lender now. As I mentioned, we have a lender who's not really associated with a bank. So that this bank is not saying, hey, you have to have a commercial checking account, for instance. So many of the larger banks are saying, well, you have to have a commercial checking account with our bank in order to qualify for one of these loans. Or some of them are saying, not only do you need a checking account, but you have to have an existing commercial loan with our bank, and then we'll help you. You may have heard that the president was pushing many banks to change that policy, because that's a policy of the bank, not really a policy of the government. So the government had this idea that what would happen is that you would attest, so when you fill out these applications, you swear or certify to a number of things. I don't have a felony. I'm going to use the money for this amount. I'm being honest, things like that. And simply you're certifying that, and then you push it to the bank, and the bank would fund you that day or within a couple of days. But that is not what's happening. I always tell people, there's a way things are supposed to work, and then there's a way that they actually do work. And so we won't find out how that actually is working until we get into it. So again, now we're a week in, we're finding out that many of the programs or the map that they set out to say, hey, this is the way it's going to work, has not really come out that way. So I don't know if any of you out there have any experience with being turned down by a bank. Again, many of my clients have been already turned down by their bank. And so then they're looking for a second source of funding. How are we going to do that? Excuse me. Also, part of the problem is going to be you're going to be low. So even the big banks, when they ask you to fill it out online, and it seems like, oh, that was 10 minutes or 15 minutes, that was easy. Most of them are going to come back to you and say, okay, as I mentioned, they're going to ask you for your 940, 941s, your tax returns, your 940s into the first quarter of this year. And that's kind of what throws a lot of people off, because that just happened. The third quarter just ended. So they don't have their 940 or 941s for the last quarter prepared yet. And so they're pushed to get that done. And so in order to have the records, it's a lot like when you go for a loan for a bank. Excuse me. When you go for a loan at a mortgage and they start asking you for documents, and you start questioning, why do they need this? Why do they need that? That you can't question, okay? They're asking for it. You're not going to get the loan unless you comply with what they're asking you for. And so the answer is comply. Give them what they're asking for. Even if it sounds unreasonable or unnecessary, then you still have to comply in order to qualify for that loan. So my advice to you: comply. Do the best you can. I wouldn't submit a loan unless you had all of the boxes checked. Say, yes, I did this. Yes, I did this. Because all the lenders are going to give you a list. They're going to give you a checklist. This is what we need. And so you have to go down that list and make sure that everything that they say they need, you included in the package to sell them. Because you don't want to come back in 2 weeks or 3 weeks and say, oh, we didn't process your loan because we didn't have the right information. And the same thing is going to happen when they start asking for forgiveness, right? You're going to have to substantiate everything that you use the money for. And so keep that in mind. Now, many people turned out and they applied for the disaster loan, that $10,000 grant. If you haven't, I would suggest you do. I included that link on the initial, when you went to the website and you got that information, that summary that I included. In that summary, there was a link to the SBA where you can go fill out. That was a very easy form also to fill out. I got a confirmation for mine when I asked for the $10,000. Now you might not get $10,000. It's based on some other calculations, but I put that out there. I got the confirmation, but I haven't heard anything yet. And that was 3 weeks ago because I filled it out some time ago. But I would still say get out there and fill that out also. So my program, I'm putting together a program to help people with the loan. Some people are very organized, and they're really good at research, and they know how to get this stuff done themselves. And so I say, great, do that yourself. If you can, do it yourself. Although in most of these cases, you're going to find that it's much more complicated than you think it is. And so, and again, some people know that they're not organized and they're not going to be able to do it themselves. And so we put together a package for the PPP plan, we call it, and it's the initial package that we're put together to try to help people. Now I'm trying to go by and put together some services that people might need. There's things that I think that people need, but what do people need? That's why I'd like to ask you, that are listening, what is it that you think you need? What kind of legal services? Maybe you don't know, but what you'd be open for. So if I have 10 employees or more, because again, this goes up to 500 employees. If I have 10 employees, 20 employees, putting those documents together is going to be very difficult, but it's going to be necessary. And so that's what, in all of the practice that I have, this is what we do. We put together substantiation for the IRS to prove what expenses and income is in a business in order to come up with a payment plan with the IRS. So this is very similar to that. So this is what we are geared for. I don't know if you're familiar, but I have a radio show. The radio show is called the IRS Radio Hour. And on that radio show, I talk often about these different avenues to help people. So we talk about full financial recovery. What that means is that we're trying to not only get this loan for you, but to help you through this process or this crisis, because this crisis isn't going to be finished when we go back to work. If that happens on May 1st, and there's talk now that we're going to go till May 30th or beyond. If you listen to Ezekiel Emanuel, he's talking about 18 months. Now that's, to me, is impossible. We can't wait. We can't last 18 months. But I don't know if we can last another 30 days. But if, with these stay-at-home orders, and now with Chicago and other municipalities starting to stop people and making why you're out and asking you why you're outside, it's going to be much more onerous on people who are going to work, even those who are deemed essential. And even essential workers are going to be this is going to hit them too, even though they're still working, but their company's going to have a downturn in income. And so many of these companies who are keeping people are cutting their income. Now, that's why this PPP loan is out there, to not cut their income. Because if you cut their income, what are they going to do? They're going to go to unemployment, and the government's going to have to pay them on unemployment anyway. So this is a way to avoid that. Keep them working, keep them getting paid, keep a paycheck so they can pay their bills going forward. And that's the whole purpose of this PPP. So I don't know if anybody has a question. Let me see if anybody has a question. There is a question, well, will you be doing more webinars? The answer is yes. I'm going to do a lot of webinars. I'm going to do them very often, because this is an ongoing thing. That every day there's new information that's out. Every day I'm reading the papers, and the banks will come out with something, or Congress. As I said today, we learned that they're going to increase the program by $250 billion to make the more money available to the small business people. And because, again, I think really this program was geared towards those small business people with 1 to 10 employees, but yet the people who are with that 500 employees, they're the ones first in line. They're going to get the most money, right? Because you could borrow up to $10 million in this program. And so, now, of course, they have a lot more employees to watch out for. But as a small business owner, an independent contractor, sole proprietor, right, I'm not eligible for state unemployment. Now, part of the CARES Act did address that. And under the CARES Act, if I'm an independent contractor, unemployment compensation may be available for me also. And so sometimes that's the better avenue to go to try to get unemployment. So I had a gentleman who just started last year, so he didn't have a large income. He was a realtor, and he didn't have a large income on his 1099. So for him, going to the unemployment, that would make more sense, because he's going to, even if he doesn't get any money from the state, the federal government is supplementing any state unemployment by $600 a week. So while it might not pay all your bills, it beats a sharp stick in the eye, as they say. So get the $600 a week. It'll help. It's something, and it'll be helpful. And now a lot of this stuff also, there's going to be a lot of tax implications. So let me see. Let me answer another question. I filled out the paperwork several times. When will this be final? Well, I don't know what you mean by you filled it out a couple of times. There are different banks. If you can only apply once, and so you should get a confirmation that you did apply. And then now, as I mentioned to you, sometimes you applied and you went through but it's not really being processed, because they're going to come back and they're going to ask you for documents. So it seems like, wow, I got this behind me. That was easy. But they're still going to come back and say, okay, now that you filled it out, substantiate what you told them. Okay, you certified under penalty of perjury that this was all true. Now prove it. And that's where this is going to come in. Okay, so, and I don't know, I'm not sure exactly how the banks are doing it, if they're going to wait if they need. So let me step back just a minute and talk about the CARES Act, because in the law, there's no requirement that there would be substantiation. So the whole purpose was to let you just certify to it, because the goal was to get you money in your pocket as soon as you can, as fast as possible. And so that's why they said, well, let's just certify it, because if we go through all this, we need all this paperwork, that's going to take forever. So let's just let them certify to it, and then we'll prove it later. So I'm not sure if the banks, I got to tell you, I know that there are lenders out there who will not submit or process the loan without the substantiation in their possession and having reviewed it, like an underwriter with a mortgage. So they're going through it and they're saying, hey, we need all these documents before we even ask for the money. Now, the purpose was that they could you fill out that easy form online. They send it to the government, and the government sends the money, and then you substantiate it in order so that should give you some lag time in order to come up with the documents and get the money in your pocket. So that's the goal. So let me go to the next question. I've already applied for the SBA loan. Can I still apply for the PPP loan program? The answer is yes, you can. As I mentioned, I myself have applied for the $10,000, that grant that's out there. That's supposed to be against whatever loan money that they give you. But there's other disaster programs out there. Now, here's the caveat to that question. The caveat is if you have an SBA loan and it's been granted and you're using it for the same purpose as this loan, well, then you can't get this loan because this loan has a specific purpose of what you're supposed to use the money on. So if you have another SBA loan, don't use the money for this. Okay, don't use it for payroll or utilities or rent. Use it for something else, because if you can't use it, you can't use that money for this and then get this money forgiven. Now, money is fungible. I get that, but if you're spending the money and paying your payroll before you get this money, well, then obviously you didn't use this money for that purpose. Okay, so again, don't mix it. Don't that, and that's so important in this. If you already got a loan, now if I applied for the loan, I haven't gotten it yet, so there's no way I could have mixed it. And if you haven't applied for a disaster loan, an SBA disaster loan, you should. Okay, so that's another step in this ladder that we're talking about to get out of this, to climb out of this, right? What part of the first thing is let's apply for this loan. Second thing is stop the bleeding. Third thing is try to get more money, right? Because you got to have, this is when they passed the PPP. What the idea was that we're all going to go back to work on April 15th. Well, here we are, April 8th, and we ain't back to work, right? We don't have the money. So this is, so it's going to go, you're going to need more money. And so there's going to be more programs down the road. I can almost guarantee that down the road, more people will be there'll be more programs, another round. I know they had the HARP 1, HARP 2. So this will be the same thing. The Congress will go back and say, well, we did it for this specific period of time. We need it for a longer period of time. So let's do another program. And you may have to do a whole nother round of applications and another substantiation and all of this. So it's going to just kind of roll on itself in order to get so I'm just going to go back to this. I'm going to say, this is a process. The process is going to take a long time. Whenever the government gets involved, it doesn't get resolved overnight. And that's why the program that I'm putting together to help people is not only to put this PPP loan in, but not only help you get that loan, but to give you legal and tax advice going forward. Because there's going to be, it's all about paperwork, people. Okay, it's all going to be how you can substantiate, how you report stuff. How, there's going to be tax credits. There's going to be other tax rebates. There's going to be other tax implications. So you need someone that can go in and understand how to use these tax implications in order to get the best benefit for you. It doesn't do any good if programs are out there, if there's available tax credits or things, and then you don't take advantage of them because you didn't know about them. So and how could anybody know about them? Because that's not what you do about. That's not your business. That happens to be my business. So we'll keep up on all that stuff because this is all new for us too, right? This law just passed 2 weeks ago. Now I've read it. It's 888 pages. I've read the law. Okay, did I understand every word of it? The answer is no. Okay, because it's very difficult to understand it. And then, like most laws, it's not only what it says, but it's how it's implemented and what the courts then say it means, or what the regulators say it means. So just because it says something clearly in the law doesn't mean that's going to be the way it works. As I mentioned before, there's always, the way things work and then the way they're supposed to work. So so again, we have to live with the way things actually do work. Okay, so let me go to the next question. Next question. How should I start navigating these different programs for my business? How do I know which ones are the best for me? Well, the answer is you don't know. And that's why you have to keep up with what's happening, because this is evolving. There's nothing set in stone here. And as I mentioned, there's going to be more and more programs coming out. And so you have to stay on this. You have to stay on top of all the news coming out. And as an attorney and as a tax person, this is what we do every day, right? And so I'm keeping up on the law, and so you don't have to. That's why you have professionals helping you in certain areas of your life, right? Because you can't know all of this stuff. Now, some people are going to do it themselves. I get that, and I want to help them too. So I'm going to provide this information to people, okay? And so that's why it's important that you're on this list, because I want to make sure that you get all the information that you need going forward. And I'm going to talk about this a little bit again, because even if you get this money, it's not going to be the answer to all. It's not going to be the answer to all your prayers, right? Because there's still going to be issues. If you got if you use 2.5 times your payroll, and then you're supposed to use that money in 8 weeks to pay your payroll and your rent, that's not going to be enough money to do both of those, and your utilities. Now you can use the money for both of those, but that's not going to be enough money to cover all that. Okay, so you're still going to be short. And so there's still going to be issues with, again, vendors and creditors and another loan and getting this one forgiven. And so and again, your taxes so again, it gets really complicated. That's why we have professionals that help us in this kind of stuff, okay, to get through it. And our goal here is to get through the other side in as good a shape as we can. Will we get through unscathed? Very few of us are going to get through this unscathed. Okay, so we have to try to keep the damage to a minimum so we can rebuild when it's time. And that's the secret, right? We want to rebuild and get out of this when it's time. And let me go to the next question. I hope I answered that question. Does the $600 per week automatically get added and starting when? Well, let me read that question again, because I kind of skipped through it. Okay, does this $600 per week automatically get added to the IDES benefits? That's the Illinois Department of Employment Security benefits, and starting when? The answer is it does get automatically. It's a federal program, so it's going to come from the money. When is that going to happen? I'm going to tell you what the government said. Soon. When? I don't know. I really don't know, and I wish I did know. I wish I could tell you, on next Thursday, you're going to get a check. I haven't heard anybody who has a check yet. I don't even know if anybody, who's been laid off has gotten their unemployment check. But and that's why it's so important that about planning, about trying to get a loan mortgage forbearance agreement in place. Contact your credit card companies and have them put off payments. So most of these are agreeing to this, okay? Because it's assumed that this coronavirus is affecting all of us. So whenever you're doing that, though, make sure you bring up that this coronavirus, that this is why you need help. Because there's, for instance, that many of the mortgage companies, if you leave out the fact that it's because of the coronavirus, well, then they won't give you the forbearance. But let me go back and talk a little bit about the forbearance, because in my case, I asked for a forbearance on my mortgage, and I use maybe if I shouldn't say, but it doesn't matter. Okay, I use Quicken Loans. Okay, so on there, I went to their portal where I pay my mortgage every month, and on that portal I asked, do you need help? It said. And I said, yes. And they said, they asked me 2 questions. The first question was, do you expect to lose a job or have a reduction of income? Well, everybody's presumed that that's going to happen to them. So the answer is yes. And then the second question they asked me was, does this have to do with coronavirus? And the answer is yes. And that's how easy it was for me to get a forbearance. Now, the forbearance was for 3 months. That means I don't have to make a mortgage payment for 3 months. But on the 4th month, July 1st is going to come. They're not going to say, okay, start paying your mortgage again. Now I owe 4 months of mortgage, and I have to have the cash to pay 4 months of mortgage. Now, if I don't have the cash, they may have some other program down the line. They might have a loan modification program, or they might have a repayment plan. And these are 2 different things. or maybe they'll do another forbearance for you because maybe you're waiting on government money because maybe it's going to take that time. But that's why it's real important right now to hoard as much cash as you can, put off those payments if you can. Now, in a mortgage, for instance, if I have a forbearance for 3 months, if I have the funds to pay some, you should pay some, because in the fourth month, then you won't owe as much, because it's going to be a big shot. But again, if I'm waiting for the government to get some of this money to come, it's going to be longer than you think. It's always longer than they say. So then when you get the money, then you'll be able to pay it. So I hope I answered that question. I don't, and I wish I had the answer for you to say, well, when is it going to start? I don't know when it's going to start. And they keep saying soon, so I'm sure they mean it. I'm sure that's what they want. They want it to be soon. And so we're going to hold them to that, but we can't rely on it. Okay, next question. I'm worried that this problem will worsen. It's not the payroll I'm worried about, but paying my taxes that was saved by the IRS. What can I do to protect myself? Well, that's a good question also. The IRS has an initiative out there. As I mentioned earlier, I work with the IRS every day, and we help people who owe the IRS money. And so one of the initiatives that the IRS put out there is that it's called the People First Initiative. And so if I'm in an installment agreement right now for some money that I owe the IRS, they're waiving it. I don't have to make those payments now, and they won't default me out of the program. Now, by law, they have to charge an interest rate for however long I don't pay them. So even though they're not asking me to pay them, I'm still getting interest on that money. And so and there's nothing they can do about that, so they say. Now, again, they're the government; they can change anything they want. But according to the law, they have to charge interest until you pay it. So, but again, there are programs out there, even from the IRS, to put off your payments. As we find here with April 15th coming up around the corner, that we were supposed to have our taxes paid by April 15th. And now they first thing they did was they say, okay, we won't ask you to pay until July 15th. And then they went further and said, now you don't even have to file your tax returns until July 15th. And it took Illinois some time to do that, but then Illinois came around and said, okay, you don't have to file your Illinois taxes until July 15th also. Will that be pushed further? I don't know. I guess it would depend on how long it goes. And what can you do to protect yourself? Well, that's a good question. And the best way to protect yourself is stay informed about what's out there, and get help when you need it. That's the best way to protect yourself. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to give you guys the answers to the questions and the information that's out there to keep you informed about which way to go on this. Okay, so let's go to the next question. What would you recommend is the best way to make sure we comply with disclosures so our loan is forgiven? It's all about substantiation. You have to have the documents to back up what you're saying, and that's what's going to be the secret to getting your loan forgiven. It's not going to. I'd say it's not up to the lenders, but it might be up to the lenders, right? Because if they don't submit it to the government, then you're not going to get it. Because that's what's going to happen, right? Is that they're going to give you a loan, and then you're going to have to prove to the bank that it's going to be forgiven, and then they're going to go back to the government and say, "Hey, this loan has been forgiven." Because what's going to happen is a lot. And here's another complication, right? The bank may turn around and, as soon as you get the loan, turn around and sell it to somebody else, so they can free up some more money to loan to somebody else. And so you may not even be working with the lender that you started with. I'm not sure how that's going to work. Are they going to have servicing companies, like servicing agreements, like mortgages do, or some other loan companies do? I don't know. I wouldn't think so, because they're not really servicing the loan. Nobody's making any payments on them. So there's not going to be, and that's really what a servicing company does, is accepts the payments and then accounts for them. So I'm not sure who you're going to have to talk to about that, about what documents you're going to have. But again, it's really about substantiation and making sure your records are good. And this is what people do. Again, most of my clients are very good at what they do. They run their own business. They're doctors, they're lawyers, they're chiropractors, they're contractors, they're realtors. Okay, they're very good at what they do. What they're not very good at is keeping paperwork and keeping records. Okay, so this is where people fall all the time. And this is the people that need help. So sometimes it's expensive to get help, but in the long run, the help is going to save you, because that's how you're going to prove all this stuff, and you won't have the IRS on you, because it costs a lot. Let me tell you this. It costs much more in penalties and interest to the IRS than getting help ever would help. I'm talking about in the beginning, before you fall into trouble. So get a bookkeeper, get some help, and make sure that all your records are right, because it's really going to be about records and substantiation. And if you can't substantiate it, you're not going to get it forgiven. Okay, you can jump up and down and say, hey, wait a minute, I used it, but if you can't substantiate it, it's not going to be forgiven. So let me go to the next question. The next question: even if you don't qualify for the EDES benefits, will you still get the $600 a week for the federal government? The answer is yes. Yeah, because you're not the Illinois Department of Revenue. So if I'm an independent contractor, right, and I'm not, so technically I'm a 1099 employee, so I'm not eligible for unemployment compensation. So Illinois hasn't put any money aside for me, and my employer isn't paying the insurance, so they're not going to have the money to pay me. Okay, so maybe I qualify for zero under the Illinois Department of Employment Security, and so they're not going to pay me anything. But I still have to apply, because that's how I'm going to get the $600 a week from the government, okay, from the federal government. They're going to pay the $600 a week. And so, and then, as I said, there was an example that I gave earlier about people who were we did the math and discovered that the $600 a week, they'd be much better off by just taking the $600 a week rather than trying to apply for this loan, because you can't get both, right? You can't get unemployment and this loan. So you have to pick one or the other and go with it. Okay, so you have to kind of, again, it's all about planning and which way. Now, how long is it going to take? And I think you answered this question. You asked this question before. How long is it going to take, and when am I going to get the money? And the answer is, I don't know. But I'm going to go back to what I was telling you before, and that's to save the cash that you have, get these mortgage forbearance and other things in place, so you don't have to worry about this. Okay, so that's my best advice to you. Okay, so I hope that answered your question. Was I surprised by anything in the law? I was surprised. About how quickly, as I mentioned, the government is always, they move at a snail's pace, and most of these programs that come out, by the time that they're available, it's already too late. And so I was surprised that they could pass this law on March 27th, and a week later start accepting applications. And now I haven't heard any money going out, although I have heard some news reports of somebody getting the money, but I personally haven't talked to anybody who got any money back yet. And I guess I wouldn't expect that, although the law did kind of paint that picture that you're just going to answer these easy questions, and within a day or two, or sometimes the same day, the lender's going to hand over the money to you. Well, again, that hasn't really happened. And so, but it has surprised me about how nimble this law was meant. I don't think the federal government's ever done anything like this before, where they've been able to move this quickly. I mean, they're notoriously bad, right, at moving things forward. And so that's one thing that has surprised me about this law. So I have one more question. So let me answer this one more question. Will you give webinars to help people keep the paperwork in order? Well, the one thing about paperwork is I can't tell you how to do it. You have to do it. And so there's not too much. I mean, I'm going to share all the information that I get about what they're going to be looking for and how they're going to be, trying to, how you can make sure that you can substantiate this stuff. And again, to go forward, you're going to need, I would suggest that people get an SBA loan. And that also takes a lot of paperwork, because that's not going to be one of these, streamlined loans. That's going to be much more difficult in paperwork wise. And so the key to any, and I'm going to go back to this, because most of my clients are very good at what they do. Okay. They're very good, but they're just not good at paperwork. And so if that's you, don't think it's going to change here. You're not going to change now. Okay. So now I hope maybe you do. So maybe you can start keeping good records where in fact you did. actually, when I find someone that, for instance, that's very good at keeping a contemporaneous uh, uh, record of their mileage when they're driving, and inevitably those people were already audited by the IRS, and that's why they do that, because they've been bit, right? And they already know that this is what they're looking for. And if I'm going to get audited, they're not going to accept any of my saying that this is what my mileage was. They're going to ask me to substantiate it and prove it with a contemporaneous record. And if I don't have that, then they won't allow me the deduction. And if they don't give me the deduction, for a lot of people, that's a huge deduction. And then I'm going to pay tax on that money, and it's going to increase my tax obligation tremendously. So my advice to you: keep good records. And if you're already doing that, then you're ahead of the game. And that's what this is all going to come down to: is substantiating to get the loan, and then substantiating to get the loan forgiven, and then substantiating to get another loan, and then substantiating to help with your creditors, to move them along, right? Because you want to work with as many creditors as you can to move your payments. Now they're looking for money too, so so they're going to be pushing you, but there's going to be programs out there in order to help you and to move this forward. And so that's what again, that's, I'm going to go back to professionals. This is what professionals do. This is what we do. When people, now's the time to have an attorney and a tax accountant on your speed dial, right? So when you have a question, you can get an answer and you don't have to go through it. So when I put this out there on this list, I have 1,500 people on this list now. Okay, so and I can't take everybody's call, and all of them can't hire me, and all of them I can't answer all their phone calls, right? So I'm not going to be able to do it. I'm just one person, so I'm not going to be able to do it. So if you need help, right? If you think you're going to need a lawyer in the future, then now's the time to join my plan, my program, and to help. So I'm available when you have a question. And also to keep you informed on this. Now, I'm going to just say, yes, I am going to keep you informed. If you're on this list, I don't care if you buy something or not. That's not really my purpose here. My purpose here is to keep you informed, but recognize that you may need help, and then seek the help that you need before you need it. Don't cross that road, right? Because the worst thing in the world would be to get this loan and then not be able to repay it. And then where are you going to be, right? And it's not going to be forgiven. Then where are you going to be? It hasn't helped you at all. All it did was kick the can down the road. So my office is really about full financial recovery. We want to help people get to the end of this, to get past this, and then to thrive at the other side. And the only way you're going to do that is by preparing yourself now, and making the fight now, and getting, again, record keeping is a big key of it, but having good advice and knowing what's out there for you is another big aspect of this. So, we do have a program. It's set up. If you're free to go there and enroll. Our basic program is, and we have other programs, but the basic program is really about the PPP. We call it the PPP program, and it's to help you if you're having problems finding a lender. We have a lender. We'll do all the paperwork. We'll help you. We'll help you submit the loan documents to the lender. We'll monitor them and push them to get the loan funded, and then we'll work with you and them to make sure that the loan gets forgiven. And then we'll give you advice about these mortgages and all these other lenders. And one of the things is when you have a lawyer on retainer, you can, when somebody calls you, say, hey, talk to my lawyer. And then you don't have to deal with it. That's what we do. That's what we help. We work with creditors every day. So we know how to deal with the creditors. And again, you're not trying to push them off. You're just trying to deal with life the best you can. And fighting with a creditor on the phone is not going to help you. So we have the PP plan. The basic plan is $1,500, and then $125 a month for 12 months. So that's the basic plan. You're all welcome to join that plan. If I can provide you with the link to where you can go, I'll do that if I can find it. So it's so important to get that up. Okay, so well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it in the in an email follow up to this meeting here today, this webinar. If anybody, I could put it in the chat. Okay, so someone's asked me to put it in the chat, so let me try to. I did have it. Boy. Oh, that's the Zoom number. Just give me a moment here. I had it, so we can make sure that we get this. I don't know if anybody. It doesn't look like my emails went out like they were supposed to. So maybe that's the kind of gets. I'm using a new mail service, so the mail service kind of got bogged down. So. Here we go. So here's it in the chat. There's the, I put it in the chat. That's the link. You can go there. You can sign up for the program there. And happy to have you. Anything I can do to help you, I will. There's another question. You were very helpful, but is there a way I can stay in touch with you? Well, I think the best way to stay in touch is through the email. And because I'm going to have these webinars every so often. Obviously, the best way to do it is to sign up for our program. And that way you'll have my line at the office and you can call me whenever you want, because part of the program is unlimited telephone consultations about this case and your legal matters and tax matters. And so that's the best way to keep in touch with me, because I'm only one person. I can't help everybody all the time. I take a lot of questions anyway, because on my radio show, I encourage people to call me with a question, but I can't give legal advice to people who aren't my clients. I'm ethically prohibited from doing that. Now I can give general information. I can tell you what I know. I can, and I try to do that as best I can. I'm very free with that. And so if you have a general question and you want a general answer, I'll be happy. You can call my office. My office number is 312. I'll put it in the chat here. 312-664-6649. So let me put it in here. 312-664-6649. And you can call there anytime. Talk to Bonnie and ask her to set up a time, and then she'll set up a time for us to talk, and I'll be happy to answer any questions for you. But again, if you're not a client, I can't give you legal advice, and I certainly can't go through your tax form and look for any credits that might be available, or any errors, or any other tax loopholes that there might be out there to help you, because that takes an investigation, and that investigation is time consuming, and that means I can't do that for everybody for free, because that's what we saw. So, and I have and clients are always going to get the first, our attention first. So, okay, let me do one. I think I got time for a couple more questions. Okay, so I think I just did it about keeping in touch with me. I think I just did that. So if you have any other questions, or if there's any way I can help you, please let me know. Stay up on these. Stay up on this on my email. So keep a lookout for them. I'm going to be out there. I'm going to be giving you. I'm going to try to send. As I mentioned, I had some problem with my mail server, so I've been sending out emails every day, but they haven't been always going out. So I think I have that problem fixed. So you should be getting at least one email from me a day about what's going on, because there's a change every day of what's going on. So, and I'll have another one of these webinars fairly soon. So again, if you have any questions, anything I can do to help you, please let me know. We'll cut it off here. It's about an hour. So before I go, if there's a question, someone wants to post a question, be happy to answer it. Otherwise, we're going to end this question and answer now. Again, you can find me 312-664-6649. You go to chicagotaxteam.com. Wait for my emails. All that stuff's going to be on the email. And if you're here, that means you were on the list. And that means unless you've unsubscribed, and you can, there's an unsubscription on the bottom. Unless you have unsubscribed, you're on the list, and I'm going to keep you informed of what's going on here. And on that, on those emails, we'll have my office number. I'll include my email too, so you can shoot me an email, and I'd be happy to answer your questions in a general term the best I can. So thanks so much for joining us here today. Anything I can do to help you, I certainly will. Thanks again.